In 2012, I was living in upstate New York, and Hurricane Sandy hit. It rained, it stormed, yada yada yada. I pet a skunk during the storm, and the day that the rain stopped, it dropped like 4 feet of snow. And me and my now, and I'm so glad to say this, ex-girlfriend, we dug out the Jeep and drove to Florida that day. And we went to the Ocala gathering. While I was at the Ocala gathering, I met the Shut Up and Eat It kitchen. Um, and I started working with them at the Ocala and the Acola gatherings that happen in Florida. A few months later, I was invited back to the farm. I ended up moving onto the property. I lived there for about a year. By farm, I mean the garden, the cult that's going on TikTok. And back then, it was called Shut Up and Grow It. And it was funny because they never really grew anything, probably because, well, they never really shut the fuck up. But yeah, so I'm living there, and right off the bat, I notice that there's problems. Immediately, I see a dog tied to a fence or tied to a tree with no shelter whatsoever. He was tied there for like 6 months. This dog almost attacked a child, and instead of getting rid of the aggressive dog, because the dog belonged to the guy who was running the property, they chose to try to kick out the pregnant mother who had a child who almost got attacked by this fucking dog. Her kid was like 2 or 3 years old at the time. Um, and then things just kind of got worse from there. There was a lot of drinking and a lot of drug use on the property. Um, there was a problem with how the locals viewed the commune at that point in time. We really had issues with our reputation in the local community, and this was due mostly to the fact that there was a lot of people that were on the commune that were going into town and shoplifting from stores and panhandling and doing all kinds of, just breaking all the commune rules that, like, you just don't do that kind of stuff in your commune. And so we ended up having a council to discuss. And I remember me and like one other person were like just totally against this. It was fucking stupid. We shouldn't even have to like have this conversation. But they held a council to discuss how far people should travel before it was socially acceptable to start stealing from the stores. And I mean, like, they literally had a shoplifting council. And, it gets worse from there. When alcohol became a problem on the property, or when they started to realize that it was a problem for like 2 weeks, um, they decided to put a no alcohol or a no drinking on the property rule. That lasted about a week or two, and it ended when one girl reached across the couch and bit a chunk out of another girl's face. Had fucking teeth marks on the side of her cheek for like a few weeks. And let's see, what else? Yeah, in my time that I lived there, I saw all kinds of fucked up shit. Um, I saw a naked man climb into a girl's bed. That was an interesting one. You know, but also like after I left there, I have people who keep coming to me with stories about this place, and it's like, really fucked up shit. Like Patrick, the guy who runs the property, he killed a lady's dog using poison. He poisoned her dog. Patrick also knew that there was a sex offender registered to the property and didn't bother to tell any of the parents who had children living on this property. Um, to top this off, there was also child porn found on a bus on the garden at 8967 Galen Road. They found child porn on a flash drive on one of the buses. And when the person who found it approached Patrick, the landowner, and told him about it, he didn't seem interested whatsoever in finding out who it belonged to. And I can only think of one reason why a father, someone who has kids, wouldn't like be interested in finding out who it belonged to, because he already knew who it belonged to. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. There was, let's see, there was another person who was preying on kids. There was a guy who was feeding alcohol to a like 14-year-old girl and ended up getting into some kind of fight with her brother or some kind of argument or altercation. Um, I mean, this place is definitely a cult. And to top it off, along with all the abuse and all the horrible things that have happened there, they're running a 501c3 nonprofit that's registered to 8967 Galen Road, and it's a total scam. Like in the beginning, they attached themselves to the DAPL protests. So like in the beginning, they kind of had a legitimate thing to be doing charity, but like every fundraiser that they've done since then, they don't even bother trying to attach it to any kind of legitimate cause or organization. They just like help us raise money for our bus home, or help us raise money to buy another property. And like, who's gonna be the owners of that property? Patrick, and only Patrick. That's pretty much the way that the garden's set up now. He says that it's held by a trustee of three people, but it's held by Patrick, Patrick's mom, and Patrick's ex-wife, who can't even use the property because Patrick's a fucking wingnut. You know, like these people have scammed thousands of dollars using the so-called People's Project 501c3, and like they're literally just embezzling the money and putting it into their own pockets. This is not a good place. It's literally a cult. It is actually a cult. There was another instance where Patrick supposedly arranged work for several people from the garden to go work with him at some kind of music festival, and right off the top, he was taking 80% of their paycheck before he even gave them any of their money. So like he was pocketing 80% of their paychecks. This is the kind of person that he is. He's a manipulator. And I've seen he was doing this 10 years ago when I was there. He was taking people and trading work to other farms, and then coming back and telling everybody on the community, oh yeah, they paid us in potatoes. And he would come back with like 2 milk crates full of potatoes. And it's like, you just gave these people like $800 worth of labor with how many hippies you took over there and how long they were working. You just gave these people like $800 worth of labor, and you expect me to believe that all they're paying us for that is 2 crates worth of potatoes, like $8 worth of potatoes? Like, that doesn't make any sense. He was taking people over there, working them, and then taking the money that they were supposed to be getting and putting it in his own pocket, because Patrick is a scam artist. The garden is a cult, and they use that property to take advantage of people so that way they can stuff their own pockets. And that's exactly what they do. They manipulate people into working for them and into paying their bills so that way they can just go along being bums in life.